It's been so long, I almost thought that I forgot how to ring the bell. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Sedro Woolley Rotary Club, the greatest club in the... Let's start off with an invocation. Mike?
We're on. Okay, please bow our heads. Heavenly Father, thank you for this meal. Please bless the hands that prepared this meal. Bless it to the nourishment of our bodies. Thank you for letting us all gather here together and on a non-rainy day that we'd like to see more of as we go forward here. Watch over us in everything we do, whether it's Rotary or our personal lives, and shape our lives accordingly. In your Son's name we pray, amen.
Amen. Pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The four-way test. Is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned? All right, and today we have the vocal stylings of Mr. Pat Eason.
Good afternoon, everybody. I thought we'd try to talk some good weather into existence. So You Are My Sunshine will be the song for the day. And I printed out the words because if you're like me, I only know the chorus. So with that, you are my sunshine, my only sunshine. You make me happy. You'll never know. Please don't take my sunshine away. So sunshine, my only sunshine. Be happy when the skies are gray. You'll never know, dear, how much I love you. Please don't take my sunshine.
Thank you. I don't know the words to it besides the chorus as well, so. Okay, do we have any visiting Rotarians today? How about guests of Rotarians? 100% Sedro Woolley Rotary today. All right. Okay, club business. I would like to thank the Rotarians from our club that attended the Skagit Rotary auction last Saturday. It was very well attended by our club. We couldn't even fit all of our members in one picture, so it was good to see everybody. And if you are on Facebook, then you would have seen that we had a contest winner straight from our club. Mike and his lovely wife won the dress-up contest for the best costume.
Well, Thurston Hal the third to be exact.
And his lovely wife, Lovey, it was great. I think that our club really made it so you guys won because we were definitely the loudest cheering for you guys, so. Yes. Next up, we have an auction coming up. I don't know if you guys know this or not, but May 10th is our foundation auction. We need to start gathering silent auction items. I would like to say thank you to Rebecca Scrindy because I got a text message and she has stepped up to be our live auction procurement chair. Are you sure? Oh, I was like, what? So thank you. That is it is a massively important job. So thank you so much for stepping up. I am becoming, well, I already had an idea, but Becky really can do anything and she does do everything. So thank you. Let's see, Crystal Ball is next week. Do we have an announcement about that or?
Well, Crystal Ball is next week. Please make sure everybody shows up because we've graded the test. The trophies are at the engraver. The names are being put on there and you never know which trophy you might win. So Looking around, we've tried to write a really good test for this coming year, a relevant test, but we've already had to change a couple of questions because of current events. So it's a good test. Please show up, and there'll be an email going out if you can't make it, that will have the link to the test, so that you'll have about 3 days to take the test. So that's it. $5. Please either give it to Steve Huggins or Venmo it to him.
All right, thank you. Do we have any other announcements? We will have a board meeting, but it is not until February 13th, so I'll remind you guys again about that. Anything else? No? All right then. Christina, do we have a raffle?
We have a raffle. The first number is 34, N34. Well, look at your numbers. Well, that's embarrassing. Let's try another one. What? Oh, it's Rich. It's Rich. I should have just known it was Rich. He had a choice of a 5-pack of beer and some wine, and he chose to spin the wheel and win absolutely nothing. Nothing. $50. The number 50. That'd be our esteemed Lynn Tucker. Try this. Takes a Pinot Noir. The number 6, Mr. Massey. Pack of Budweiser? 5-pack. Yeah, it's only got 5 lines. Okay. Takes the 5-pack of Budweiser.
It has a bonus water bottle in it.
We're teaching hydration here. Yeah, it's all the same. And that's it.
All right, Sergeant of Arms.
Okay, this is the first of the month. As always, if I call your name, it's going to cost you $1 for whatever reason. I need a couple of people to help me pick up. So I don't know, Mr. Schweikert and I don't know, Teek, can you help me? Oh, Pat's got it. Well, I called your name anyway, Teek. Still going to cost you $1. Birthdays. First of the month here, birthdays are $2. Anniversaries are $3. Birthdays on the 8th, Rick Lemley. On the 9th, Dan McElraith. Lynn, you want to pay for Dan? Oh, Dan, make sure you pay Lynn $3 at some point. On the 10th, Tim Howland. Who wants to pay for Tim? Somebody can volunteer to pay for Carl. You haven't been here forever. You can pay for Tim. There we go. On the 12th, Dan Hockett and Eric R. Johnson. He's got the money out already. On the 13th, you know anybody, Mike's got a birthday on the 13th? Your brother does. I would love you to pay. $2. Also on the 13th, Josh Requa. Anybody volunteer? You can pay for Josh. There we go. Perfect. On the 15th, Daryl Skiles. And Daryl's not here. That's unusual. John Manaran, would you like to pay for Daryl? Thank you. On the 16th, Joe Jones. And Joe is not here. Mr. Nick, would you like to pay for him? Thank you. Make sure you collect from these guys. And on the 24th, Neil Rothenbuehler. And I don't see Neil either. We're not doing very well here. Thank you. Thank you. Anniversaries, Chris Johnston, not here. If somebody can pay for him, that'd be great. And on, Rebecca, you have an anniversary this month. So that's all the anniversaries. If I missed somebody, honesty applies here. Go ahead and pay. Miscellaneous, anybody didn't sign in, cost you a couple of bucks. You don't have a badge on, that's $1. If you got your name or your picture in the paper this past week, $2. And remember, is it the truth? And then finally, just in the random stuff here, basketball game, boys basketball game last week against Mount Vernon. Anybody go to that game besides me? I know you were there. Steve was there. It was a great game. You know, the Cubs lost by 11, but that didn't even begin to reflect what the game was all about. We were up at the half. We were down by 2 first quarter. We were up by 2 after the halftime. They fell behind. I think we were outscored something like 21-7 in the third quarter, and that was the difference. They fought back in the fourth quarter. Absolutely physical game, well played game, good sportsmanship. So if you weren't there, go ahead and pitch in $1. And then Christine already brought up the Sedro Rotary auction, but if you did not have the pleasure of attending the auction last week, go ahead and pitch in $1. So we're going to do a kind of on this day in history kind of thing today. There was a major, a catastrophe for U.S. history that happened on this day in 2003. And we're going to start at this table. Do you guys have any idea what happened 21 years ago? No, it was not the Nisqually earthquake. I think that was 2001. Close. Any idea? The Space Shuttle Columbia blew up on re-entry into the Earth's atmosphere. So in honor of that, go ahead and pitch in a couple of bucks because you're wrong. We're going to have a little bit of shuttle history. So do you guys have any idea how many space shuttles there were in total? The physical shuttles, how many of them were there? Go with 5? You're close. There were 6. There were 6. You guys want to go ahead and try and, for bonus points here, name them, what the 6 were? No? Okay, we had the Enterprise, the Columbia, the Challenger, the Discovery, the Atlantis, and the Endeavor. Yeah, and of course, we lost 2 of them, Challenger and the Columbia. How many total flights did the space shuttles go on? A lot. That's close. How many? 35? 27? Well, if you take Carl's number and add 100 to it, you're right. 135 flights. Okay, they did, of course, a huge investigation into why the Columbia blew up. Do you guys have any idea why? O-ring failure. The Columbia Accident Investigation Board determined that a hole was punctured in the leading edge of one of Columbia's wings, which was made of carbon fiber. The hole had formed when a piece of insulating foam from the external tank peeled off during launch 16 days earlier and struck the shuttle's left wing. So, no, it was not an O-ring, no. Okay, the Columbia had 27 successful flights and then the ill-fated 28th, of course. How much time did it spend in space? Overall, total flights. Well, I'll give you, sure, we'll give you 5 days. 120 days, just a wee bit short, 300.74 days. It made 4,808 orbits around the Earth. It traveled 125,204,911 miles in total. So, and then this is just kind of a bonus question. If anybody answers it, I'll be very surprised. How many times did the Columbia dock with the International Space Station? And somebody just throw out an answer. 152, and it was in space for 300 days. Actually, it was a trick question. It never docked with the International Space Station. I tried. Okay, that's all I got. Has anybody got happy bucks? Actually, I do. I got a happy 5. I told these guys over here already, but my daughter is expecting another granddaughter for us. So we will have a new granddaughter in July. That's Emily. So happy bucks. Somebody must be happy. There we go.
I don't know if this was said before or not, but I attended Brian Gansky's celebration of life, and I was certainly happy, and I know that he would have been too, or is happy to see all the people, including Rotarians, there to celebrate Brian. I know his family was appreciative to see us.
Thanks, Todd. Who else is happy? We got Mr. Tucker's happy.
Paying happy bucks last week worked out. You guys gave Christine a good report on what I did. So here's my other 20 for the good report.
I got 10 happy bucks just because that's what was in my pocket. But I was driving my granddaughters to school this morning, and I hardly ever drive them because Lisa does, but she wasn't there anyhow. And they said, I go, what's going on? And they told me, Taylor Swift is going to make it to the Super Bowl. And I said, does that matter to you guys? We're going to watch the Super Bowl. These girls are in 1st grade and 3rd grade because there's a phenomenal thing going on that I had no idea was going on. So anyhow, now you guys all know that this is a big deal for little girls.
Good to know, Mike.
I'm gonna have to Venmo $10. Brian's mom turned 98 today or this week. Flo, she's been volunteering at Helping Hands for over 30 years, and she's my favorite volunteer.
I have a happy 10 that I get to head off for Copan Ruinas, Honduras, Sunday night for 18 days and see our students and see what mischief we can be up to.
Fun. Any other happy people? Oh, Christine's happy.
I don't have cash, so I'm Venmoing it right now, but my daughter just started driver's ed and she's only ever driven a go-kart and a Power Wheels. And I was terrified. And I took her out driving at Northern State on Saturday and I didn't die. I only grabbed the handle twice and I only had to grab the steering wheel once. So we'll get her there. She'll be road safe by the time September rolls around.
We have one more online here too.
Okay.
Frank, did you?
Go ahead, Frank.
I have a happy 20. I got to spend a wonderful week last week on a cruise ship in Honduras and Mexico with my wife for our 25th anniversary. And on the trip, my daughter announced to the world that her and her husband, Drew, will be giving us a grandchild like Mike this July.
Hey.
Going to be a little boy.
And Mr. Carl, I imagine you're happy. You've been gone forever.
Yeah. 10 rested and ready. I have a happy $10. We just returned. We were in Lima, Peru yesterday. We returned after 28 days, 5 countries in South America, including the Falklands, and rounded the Horn. So rounded Cape Good Hope in March, rounded the Horn a couple weeks ago. So if I show up with 2 golden earrings each year, I deserve them. But we had a great time and interacted with a lot of indigenous culture and could go on and on, but happy to be back in Sedro Woolley.
Perfect. Anybody else?
Kate, did you have something you wanted to share? I guess not.
Okay, President Christine, it's all yours.
Okay, thank you. So our program today is our very own Carl Garrison. I'm very excited. So if you didn't already know this, Carl is a professional engineer with 35 years of engineering experience. He regularly works with single-family homeowners, small public water systems, larger utilities, and developers to provide drinking water to homes and businesses. He's here today to share some of his stories about the unexpected challenges, expenses, and time it takes to design, treat, store, and maintain our most precious resource, water. Please welcome Carl Garrison.
Thank you for that. Did you know that water can cure depression? Bet you didn't know this. If you ever wonder and you're feeling blue, just drink a quart of water before bed and it'll always give you a reason to get up in the morning. Yeah. So where do we get our water from that we drink? And it's something that most people take for granted. And only when they're gobsmacked with a project do they realize the gravity of how expensive it can be. And a lot of you older Rotarians that have done some development, you get it all. But I have some stories today that I think illustrate two things. One is the cost and expense of water and how bad it can be. And the other is that it seems like all the easy developments are gone. There's no more easy ways to develop. When I first moved here, you could do a short plat in pretty within a year, certainly maybe 6 months. And you could put 6 or so lots on the market and have public water. And it was not that bad of a deal. Now it's a 2-year to 12-year to indefinitely long period of time to develop lots, and all the easy ones have been picked. And so I get all of the worst that come to my desk because people need help from somebody that can help them through all the maze. And I just have a few stories, and I thought it was worth sharing because at some point in your life, you may have to get water from a utility or drill a well, or maybe you're on a water board at a local community association, or you're in a condo association. So I'm trying to make this presentation relative to just about everybody. Okay, go ahead to that. Oh, that's me right here. Okay. So most of us have water from Skagit PUD. And I thought it would be just as sort of a barometer for what is fair and reasonable about water. I thought I would share the cost. So if you have a 5/8 meter for a regular home and the main is in your street and you have a new home and you're going to tie into that, the cost is $11,000 that you pay PUD for that. That gets you, it's broken down into two things. One is the system development fee, and one is the setting of the actual meter and the labor and stuff to install it. And so what is a system development fee? Well, that is your fair share of the current value of the entire PUD system that you're tying into. All right. And that's worth probably $8,000 of the $11,000. All right. And for every public water system out there, big or small, they should be charging a system development fee and a meter connection fee. And the sum of those two hopefully are in the range of that. But I can tell you that they range probably from $5,000 to $40,000 for one connection of water. Now, if you have ADUs are a thing coming down the pipe in the legislature, they want to make it easier for infill in communities by adding either attached or detached ADUs, accessory dwelling units. And if you're going to have a house with an ADU, you're recommended to put in the 3/4 inch meter, the slightly larger one. And so it's almost $14,000 for that one. And just to give you an idea of how the prices go up, if you put in a 2-inch commercial meter, that's $48,000. And if you had a 6 or 8 inch meter, it's something like $600,000 and $800,000. And so the size of the meter, it goes up geometrically because of the, you can put like 100 gallons a minute through a 2-inch meter, and you can put 20 gallons a minute through a 5/8 meter. And for the water utility to deliver that costs a lot of money. And so you get paid, they don't do anything for free. We'll just say that, I guess. All right, so let's say you are doing an extension of the PUD main. How much do you pay? Well, if you're gonna, it's about $250 a foot for somewhere between 500 and a 3,000 foot length of pipe. That would be the cost that you could budget. It would be more if it was like 50 feet because the cost per foot goes up, a lot when you have a very small amount to do. So if you do 500 feet of pipe, you can budget, you need about 124,000 for the extension. And then you have to pay the system development fee and the meter connection fee on top of that. So it's about 135 grand to do just 500 feet of pipe. And so there's one of the things in the industry we always figure out is, should we drill a well or should we extend the main? And it boils down to how much does it cost? And if you can drill a well cheaper than 135 in most cases. All right. But we'll see in some cases, maybe that's not the case. Okay. So when you drill a well, you get water out. And it isn't always beautiful, crystal clear, clean water like the upper left. Sometimes it has iron, manganese, or it doesn't show it here, but tannin, that's organic material in the water. And then they could have everything in the water. And then the one on the right, I'll tell you a story about the one on the right. So anyway, iron and manganese are ubiquitous to the region. It's all over the place. If you drill out in the flats out there, you'll have like 60 parts per million iron, and your water will be looking like that. It'll have so much iron in it. And that's really hard to treat that much iron and get it out without it clogging up all the time. All right. But most of the time it's either clean or it looks like one of these three or one of these four in the top or that one. And this is a pretty good example, or this is a white bucket test. So you take a white bucket, really, hard to do, not really. And you fill it up with water and you look at that. And so if you're buying a home, note to self, do a white bucket test on the water at the home before you buy of the raw water. And that way you'll see what you're getting into, because it can be quite expensive to treat all this stuff if you have it. We've had some wells that have so much silt in them that if you put a rock in the bottom of that white bucket, it'll disappear after an inch or two of water's in it. And that's the only water available. And you have to find out a way to redevelop the well more or filter all that gunk out. And it gets to be a challenge. Now, this is a public water system in South Whidbey. And this is inside of a white tank. You can't even tell it's white. And they put the well in there, and then they pumped it from there through filters. And they chlorinated before this, and that turned all the iron red. And then iron bacteria colonies formed and created all the slime. And then they didn't follow their engineers' directions, and they ran that water through berm media to filter out all the stuff. And what used to work years ago had morphed over the years, and the operator didn't understand. And he started chlorinating before this berm media, and it stripped the manganese off the media into the water. So this I got from the guy's house. When we opened up his hose, that's what came out of the house. And they'd been living that with this for years. And it's just ridiculous. It looked like coffee. And it's just like, I don't know, maybe 100 parts per million manganese, which is off the charts way high. And so we ended up making a project out of it, treating it, fixing the treatment problems. And there's more to that story. And over a cocktail, I'll be happy to tell somebody someday. But what a disaster that was for the homeowners who fought this for a couple of years before they got resolution. And yeah, what a mess. And it was a group of 23 homes with a board and a board president and a secretary, and it, you know, kind of like a Rotary Club would be run. And they have to make these decisions, and then they have to spend, you know, they probably had to spend $60,000 to fix it. And you have to have $60,000 to fix it. And if you don't, you borrow money. You know, there's lots of things that you have to consider when you live on those homeowner associations. Okay, let's see here. I'll just leave that slide up there for a little bit. One of the things I do a lot is treat arsenic in drinking water. I've done about 1,000 of them since the rules changed in 2002. And a typical homeowner will be developing a lot in Snohomish County, King County, Skagit Island, somewhere. And they drill a well and they have a little bit of arsenic in the water. And the water looks like one of these. And then we go through and we decide how to treat it. Now, if it's clean water and all it has is arsenic, arsenic is colorless and odorless. It could look like that and have arsenic in it. Go to the next slide. You could do something as simple as put this one filter under your kitchen sink, and that would absorb the arsenic, and you'd be good to go. And that, by the time you pay an engineer and you pay the well driller to test the well and the test lab to test it, it might be a couple $1,000s to remedy that situation. And then there's this other one. And this is so I'm going from the easiest to the worst I've ever seen. And there's everything in between. Most of the time it's probably about a $10,000 hit if you have to soften the water to get rid of some iron or manganese, and you have to put in an arsenic filter and maybe something else. So you're going to spend between $6,000 and $10,000, $12,000. But this one on the right was a house in King County, and the guy was really too cool for school. He made a blog about building his home. He raised his house up on concrete caissons, the cylindrical concrete things, and put beams across. He wanted zero imprint in the nature. He was super green. He wanted to do everything right. And so he was spending, you know, money didn't seem to be an object, and he was trying to recoup some by doing a blog and writing about it. And, you know, hey, that's great. Well, he drilled a well on the property, and he had to go 900 feet to get water. And that was 10 years ago. It was $92,000 to drill it. And he had about 1.5 gallons a minute. Okay, so, and then we tested the water, iron, manganese, high pH, really hard to deal with high pH, arsenic, everything. It had like, it wasn't as gross as that one was, but it had everything in it. And this is just the filters. To the right in the picture, you can't even see it. When you're in a pump house, you can't get the whole picture, right? So there's a big storage tank with water and booster pumps. In addition to this, he spent another 60,000 or 50 or 60,000 treating the water after he burned 92 to drill it. He built a pump house for it, beautiful, matched the house, painted jet black, which was weird, but whatever. And he got up and running for about 150,000 for water for one lot. Okay. He ran for all year until October, and guess what? His well went dry. Just an absolute debacle, disaster. What do? I mean, it just felt so bad for the guy. Had to drill another well. Fortunately, he found some water, but he had $200,000 into the whole thing before he was satisfied. So that's how bad it can be. I haven't found anybody worse than that, except when you drill a well and it's a dry hole and you have no choices. And that's happened many times. My brother Tim up on the side of Big Lake, he drilled a dry hole on his 55 acres. And so then he had to extend PUD up his driveway like 1,700 feet. And then he made the cardinal sin, which now I know different. We didn't have enough experience in back 1994 to know otherwise, but he put in PVC glued joint pipe up his driveway. And he did it all himself, which was great. But that stuff is like a 20-year pipe. It doesn't last forever. And if you have earth movements, you drive concrete trucks over it, those things break, they're brittle. You always bury the black poly stuff that comes in a roll and put in that type of pipe instead. And so sure enough, like, I don't know, about 15 or 20 years after he lived there, he had a leak in his driveway and he couldn't find it. And it was PUD water that he was buying and it was leaking. And so his bill just kept going up and up and up and up. And he finally had to figure out where it was. He had to walk his, find the wet spot. And he fortunately found it. But finding leaks, like if Sue Stratoff was around here, she could commiserate on this one. She lives up on Ida Lane. And there's a public water system that serves her subdivision. And that she'll tell you that when you have a leak, it's like, how do you find it? I mean, it's just impossible and it's a real pain. And there's nobody, usually, I mean, everybody that you could pay to help you will charge you. And so if you're a group of homeowners that are trying to save money, guess what? You're out there finding it yourself. And that's just an experience you need to be ready for when you buy a house that's on a homeowner association. And by the way, Rotarians make great homeowner association officers because we're reasonable, logical, we haven't lost our mind totally. And there's lots of people that are not like us out there that manage these things. And sometimes we need Rotarians to step in and like level it out and smooth it out so that you're not flying off the handle. I've worked with one water association on Camino. They have changed the entire regime 3 times in the last 10 years. And the first regime change was hostile. It was really bad, like trying to sue each other. And yeah, it was really bad. Okay, how are we doing? If you have any questions along the way, speak up. If I get all of this done, that'll be great. And if I don't, that's okay. I'm here to entertain and try to maybe educate you so that someday you'll think, that Carl knew what he was talking about, I hope. All right, so I had a customer just in December. He called up and he didn't hire me yet, but he was like, I'm ready to buy a piece of property. I got arsenic in the well and I want to build an ADU and I'm in Snohomish County. And I said, okay, you can do that. We'll have to treat the house and the ADU. And we talked about the range of treatment costs that he could expect. And he didn't have quite enough testing done, so he had to do some more of that. But I told him it's probably going to be 12 grand or less to get through the whole thing. And so he went and bought the property. And then he's all excited. He called me back. Okay, I'm ready to go. And he gave me the parcel number of the property. And I looked it up. And it wasn't the same property that he talked to me before about. And I said, what's going on with that? He says, well, that's my neighbor. We share a well. And the well is on her property. And I said, oh my God. He just torched his whole project right there. And you can't. So if you have a house and an ADU, that's 2 connections. If you have a neighbor that shares your well, that's 3. If you have 3 or more connections, you're now a public water system. And you can't treat arsenic on a group B public water system. They won't let you. The rules won't allow it. So he just bought a piece of property for $500,000 that he can't use the way he wanted to use it. And I had to be the bearer of bad news. And so he was kind of panicky. And we ended the conversation and he says, well, let me check with my neighbor. And his neighbor is fortunately a very nice person. And she's going to allow him to give her that well and make it so he can drill another one on her property right near her well so that he can then have a 2 connection system and not be a group B. So he tried his best to have some due diligence, but because he didn't tell me the whole story and he didn't know the rule, he ended up having to drill another well. It'll probably cost him an extra 30 grand. And how many people buy a piece of property and budget to have just enough or not quite enough money, right? And then you get hit with something like, oh, you have to treat the arsenic and you have to drill another well. That could easily be 50 or 60,000 by the time he's done just to get his water hooked up. And so I guess the takeaway for me is when you buy a piece of land, you better not spend your last dollar just to get in the door, because there's always something. And boy, can I have ancillary stories of that in the house that I moved in. I've burned a lot of money since I've moved into my new house because there's always things to do. And you all know that. Okay, I have one more arsenic story, and it's not really because it's arsenic. It's more of a well supply problem. But a developer, again in Snohomish County, really nice guy, trying to do the right thing. He's been developing for years, and he made 5 lots out of a big lot, did a whole short plat, and he drilled 3 wells. He was going to have 2 two-party wells and 1 single-family well. And they were all right near each other, and they all met every requirement. One of them had a little arsenic in it, not a big deal. We treated it, and everybody moved in. And then 6 months later, or 3 months later, the wells started going dry. And after 4 or 5 months, the 3 wells are not only dry, but what water is left. The arsenic spiked from like 5 parts per billion. The limit is 10. If it's over 10, you have to treat it. But it spiked up to 269 parts per billion. Okay, so it's pretty crazy high, like lethal high. And where do you drill wells? He had to do he did a study on the underground aquifer, and it's all shale everywhere. And shale is a terrible formation to try to get groundwater out of. And so he happened to have 15 acres nearby, and he studied that land too, and there's no good place to drill. And so he took one of the wells and he reconfigured it, perforated the casing. I don't want to get into the weeds on that, but he got a little bit of water out of it. So he's got 0.8 gallons a minute, and we're going to use that water to serve 2 homes, but he still has to find water for 3. Now, what happened? The 5 homeowners got together and sued him, the developer, and then he had to hire an attorney. Well, his insurance company has an attorney to represent him, and then he had to hire another attorney to keep his insurance agent going so that the insurance can't back out of it. And that's a thing. You attorneys probably know that. Insurance companies love to take your fee to collect insurance income. They hate to pay it out. And sometimes you have to hire an attorney to force them to stay in it to help represent you. And that's exactly what he's had to do. And so here we are, we've got 2 of the homes we think we can get water to, and the other 3, we have a lot of work to do on these other areas, other wells and drilling new wells. We got to find we got to get blood out of a turnip is what we're trying to do, I guess. And it's not a good situation. So now imagine you're the homeowner, you're trucking water, and there's no guarantee that the insurance won't run out before you get water from this developer guy trying his best to get your water. So absolute disaster situation. And in my whole career, I've never seen it this bad, where you've got everything, all the homes, brand new homes. There's $2.5 million of real estate there that is now no water. So big problem. And the poor guy that's trying to fix it all, he's just a guy like you or I, and doing the best he can. And he's got insurance, and it's just a really tough situation. And the homeowners are hostile and hate him now, and it's a mess. Okay, next slide. Oh, keep going. I put that up there because you don't know where you're going sometimes on these projects. Yeah. All right, so this is a drill rig, by the way. These things are like 80,000 pounds. So when you go to drill a well on your site, you have to build a road to get in there and run that kind of weight. And just your site prep could be several thousands of dollars, and so forth. Let's see here. All right. So this next story is about a school. And it's a different kind of school. It's a wilderness school. And it's in northern King County. And it's a beloved school. Everybody glows about this place because it's like on a 40 or 60 acre site in the forest. And you can, as an adult or a child, you can take classes and go, and they teach you all these really cool things about nature, mushrooming, and, they sit around a campfire at night and sing songs, and there's staff there. There's like 4 or 5 employees that live in a house. And this thing started in the 80s in this house, and it kind of just grew organically. And they never knew anything about public water. They didn't realize that they were a public water system in the 80s. And they were now serving in 2020, 1,800 students a week, and their well was really low flow and it couldn't keep up with their demands. So they went to a well driller to get a new well drilled. And he's like, "You're doing what? Do you know you're a public system?" "Huh? What's that?" "No, we're not." "Yeah, you are." He says, "You better go talk to an engineer." So the guy called me and I'm like, "You're doing what?" And we kind of got him straightened around that, yes, he's a public system and it's a problem. And so we had to essentially design a system for him from the scratch. I said, "This is going to take 2 years to get this straightened out." He's like, "Well, we're trying to build a new school right now." I said, "Well, sorry, you're not going to get a building permit for about 2 years. And so he said, "Okay, well, let's do it." And he was a trooper. Once he got on board and realized what he was up against, he embraced it and did a great job. And so then we had to pick a place to drill because, again, it was a shale formation. And so they had 2 properties, and we went to his other property and drilled there. Every time you drill, you roll the dice because you could easily drill a dry hole if you don't know if you don't have a good knowledge of the area from other wells. And lo and behold, they hit water, and they were like dancing and letting the water run off. It was pretty funny because it's basically this school environment. They were really pleased about it. Anyway, we designed the system, and they had to put in about 1,500 feet of pipe, and they got it all done. It cost them, I don't know, $200,000 to do all that. And they put their building on hold until they can raise more revenue. I mean, that's how big of a problem it was for them. But today, now it's a legit water system, and their employees can now take a shower. They have enough water in the house, which is great. And one of the funniest things, when I was telling the lady at the state health department that is the engineer that oversees all this, she's like, "They're doing what? Wow, this one's really under the radar." She or one of her coworkers had actually sent their kids to this school in the past, and they loved the place. So now, one thing about the health department, and this illustrates it, they're not punitive. The EPA and ecology, when it comes to groundwater and fighting over water issues, can be really punitive and nasty to deal with. But the health department just wants to get safe water for everybody. And fortunately, there were no fines levied for this illegal system or unapproved system that had been operating. And another lesson that it showed to me is the more restrictive a county is, the less people comply with the law. Okay. And if you go around King County, they're the most restrictive county in the state for sure. And there's more screwed up water systems in King County per capita or whatever, in my observation and just from my own experience, than any other county. And because, they don't want to ask the question because they don't want to know the answer, and with good reason, because it can be really hard and painful. I have one more story. This one is Lake Tyee up the hill there. Okay, they have a swimming pool. They used to have a fish hatchery, and they have these places where you pull up a trailer on wheels, and then you can only live there for 60 days a year. You can't live there for more than that. This is not about Lake Tyee, but it's a very similar private club like Lake Tyee in Snohomish County. And they're tight. They are tight with money. And what that usually means is think deferred maintenance, right? So when you defer all of the maintenance of your water or your septic or your sewer or your clubhouse or whatever, you're saving money by deferring that maintenance until everything is so broken you have to start over, right? And these guys are classic for that. They have repaired and patched their pool half a dozen times and they've never fixed it right. And so now it's this mess. And they have a water system that had 2 dug wells. So a dug well is like a Jack and Jill went up the hill well, right? It's 3 feet in diameter and they're anywhere from 10 to like 60 feet deep would be a typical dug well. And they're large diameter because they're usually tapping into an aquifer that doesn't have a lot of water in it. And the more surface area down there for the water to come into, the more water they can get out of it compared to like drilling a 6-inch diameter hole for a drilled well. But their dug wells were going dry and they have, I don't know, 150 cabins or something there on the lake and they have a clubhouse. And so they drilled new wells and they had an engineer that lived there that volunteered his time and that was great. But they didn't do one thing. They didn't survey the location of the wells before they drilled them, and they drilled one about 5 feet outside of the original advertised area of the water right. And it wouldn't make a difference on water production, but it makes a difference on their water right. And so what we found out through lots of meetings is that we have to either not use that well now that they've drilled it, brand new well, because it's not in the right area, or we have to go back and change their water right. And that's what we're going to end up doing is we're going to change the water right so that they can preserve their ability to use the full water right and this kind of stuff. And whenever you mention changing water rights, anybody that has experience would know money and time. It takes a long time to get those things done. And so 4 years later, we're still working this problem. And hopefully this year we'll get them 2 new wells that are 5 years old approved.
Or yesterday when I was on that outdoor meeting, and they were saying, oh, well, you know, many of the rest of the posting, you know, it's so.
I'm thinking you need to turn your speaker off.
And I'm like, oh my God, that's bullshit. I'm like, crap, did I say that? Did I say that out loud?
Those of you online, can you mute?
Neither was my camera. But yeah.
What's that? Anybody know?
It's scary. I just don't understand. I really don't.
Is that Joellen maybe? Yeah. Anyway, I'm going to end there and ask for questions if there are any. Just know that there's a lot to things when you're getting into new property. And boy, is it buyer beware. You really got to pay attention. And you don't always have, even with good advice, it could just be painful. So, yeah, Teak.
I've got a friend who built a new house a few years ago over toward Duke's Hill, and the county made him put one of the water collection from the roof systems in.
Yeah, rainwater collection.
Rainwater, despite he did have a previous well. And do you have any comments about the rainwater systems? Is Skagit County still making people do that on properties that you can't develop otherwise?
Yeah, I think it's a total disaster from the word go. It's better than it was because the county changed. The legislature released a 0.5 cubic foot per second more out of the dams to allow groundwater users to exempt well groundwater users to be able to, who were in the right area of the county, to be able to become whole. But you can't develop upriver because it's a closed basin now. And we have more water up there than we'll ever need. And it's just a travesty that we can't use it. And rainwater collection systems that don't have, so there's 2 types. If you just have rainwater collection and that's your only source of water, in my view, you need about 24,000 gallons of water and about 6,000 square feet of roof area to make that work year round. If you're going to use like 200 gallons a day. year round. And so for a family of 4, that's kind of what it would take. Now you can use less and get by with less, but if you want to have a happy wife and happy life, you need to have enough water. And so that's what it would take. So you might have to not only build this rainwater collection system, but having a really big shop just to get the roof area, because you can't put plastic out on the ground and call that your roof. Once it hits the ground, you can't use it. So that's one thing. The other kind of system that they allow now is where you collect rainwater and you dose to the ground every day a little bit so that you can use your well and just drink from the well, and you use the rainwater to spread out so that you're mitigating the groundwater use by releasing your rainwater throughout the year every day. That's called rainwater, rainwater mitigation of groundwater, I guess. And I personally don't want to work on either one of them, because I don't want to be associated with great big tanks that you have to look at and hugely expensive systems that are awful. And so I defer those systems to other guys that want to do them. All right. Well, thank you. I don't want to go any longer than we need to.
You've earned it. All right, Carl. I know you've been waiting for a long time to receive one of these. Now you can. I figured. Thank you. All right. Well, thank you to all the members that were here since we don't have any guests. I have a joke, but it's too long to tell, so you guys will just have to wait until next week.